Here are the top stories for today, February 23, 2021. The country will not be placed under MGCQ until the vaccination program has begun. The World Health Organization said the pandemic will end by early 2022. Government extends assistance to Auring-affected residents. And President Duterte approves a whole-of-nation approach to help rebel returnees. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte has decided against placing the entire Philippines under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine or MGCQ, not until after the mass vaccination program has rolled out. Some of the country's economic managers have earlier proposed a nationwide MGCQ to balance health and economy amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said that while President Duterte acknowledged the need to reopen the economy, the president refused to put people's health and safety at risk. The national government is expected to kick off its vaccination drive this month. Malacanang said President Rodrigo Duterte prefers to get inoculated with China's Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine. In previous speeches, Duterte has repeatedly voiced out his preference for COVID-19 vaccines made in China or Russia. China approved the Sinopharm vaccine for general public use last December. The vaccine has a 79.34% efficacy based on an interim analysis of late-stage clinical trials made by its developer. It is lower than the 86% rate for the same vaccine reported by the United Arab Emirates or UAE. Sinopharm's China National Biotech Group says different efficacy results for the vaccine separately released in China and in UAE are both real and valid. Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, has granted an emergency use authorization, or EUA, to another China-based drug maker, Sinovac. However, the FDA said it does not recommend the use of Sinovac for medical workers and senior citizens due to its lower efficacy rate. Changes will be made on the list of priority groups who will be inoculated with Sinovac vaccines. This, as the Food and Drug Administration discouraged its use for healthcare workers and the elderly due to its low efficacy rate. However, Sinovac has been granted emergency use authorization in time for its expected delivery this week.
Well, magpupulong po yung tinatawag na NITAG. Ang NITAG po yung National Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Sila po yung bumuo ng list of priorities. At ang mangyayari po dyan ay siguro kinakailangan nilang baguhin muna yung ating list of priorities para sa Sinovac. Baka mauna na yung mga tinatawag nating mga economic frontliners na kasama po na ating kasundaluhan. Ito po yung mga nagtatrabaho sa mga industriya na bukas noong panahon ng ECQ. So we are recommending it because what we want is to avoid deaths and serious illnesses. It is not a low-quality vaccine. It is accepted under standards arrived at by the WHO itself.
In our world news, the World Health Organization in Europe believes the coronavirus outbreak will end in early 2022. WHO Regional Director for Europe, Hans Kluge, said COVID-19 will still be prevalent in 2021, but it will be more manageable than in 2020. Kluge said there is more information concerning the virus compared to 2020 when it first began spreading, and that the worst scenarios are now over. He also said mutations are normal, but the rapid spread of the mutations is a concern for them. Meantime, the WHO is closely monitoring the effectiveness of vaccines developed against COVID-19. Kluge indicated that the biggest problem will emerge when those who are vaccinated are in the same environment with those who are not, so scheduling is a very important factor. The House of Representatives approved on third and final reading a bill establishing a vaccine indemnity fund and expediting the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines. With 225 affirmative votes, 0 negative vote, and 6 abstentions, the Chamber passed on third reading House Bill 8648, or the proposed COVID-19 Vaccination Program Act. Under the said bill, the Department of Health and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 shall be authorized to procure COVID-19 vaccines under emergency cases as defined in the Government Procurement Reform Act. The measure also proposes the creation of a COVID-19 National Vaccine Indemnity Fund worth 500 million pesos to compensate any person in case of death, permanent disability, or hospitalization. The vaccines will also be exempted from customs duties, value-added tax, excise tax, and other fees. The Department of Tourism supports the streamlining of travel procedures and requirements imposed by local government units. Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat said the DOT has called for the simplification of travel requirements to make domestic tourism work. Puyat said this will also help in preventing the entry of those who falsify documents, as previous surveys showed that 81% of respondents consider the varying LGU requirements as the factor that makes travel most inconvenient. The Department of the Interior and local government is streamlining the fragmented rules and requirements of LGUs to help the travel and tourism industry. Among the common travel requirements are the medical certificate, pre-travel or test on arrival COVID tests, and quarantine. At the destination, some rules that need to be standardized are those related to swab tests for children and infants, rooming, or capacity limits and age restrictions. At least 34 barangays and one establishment in Pasay City have been placed under localized lockdown since Friday as the local government noted a sudden surge of COVID-19 cases in the city. The city government reported a total of 7,594 confirmed COVID-19 cases, with 361 active cases as of Sunday, February 21. Residents in these lockdown areas are not allowed to go out and should follow strict quarantine measures and guidelines set by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. Asymptomatic residents were transferred to the city's quarantine facilities for proper isolation and treatment and will undergo swab testing for COVID-19. Affected residents will receive food assistance from the local government during the localized lockdown. Are you in favor of President Duterte's decision not to transition to the less restrictive Modified General Community Quarantine or MGCQ until such time that the government has successfully rolled out its vaccination program? Let us see the opinions of our kababayans in our Boses ng Masa.
Opo, mas okay po yung wag munang i-MGCQ yung buong bansa kasi wala pa yung vaccine. Tsaka kahit nandyan na yung vaccine, iba pa rin yung nag-iingat tayo. Mas maganda yung unti-unti yung pag-clear, hindi yung basta na biglaan kasi mahirap eh. Baka bumalik tayo sa kagaya ng dati.
Yes po. Para po syempre wala pa po tayong kagaya yung sinabing bakuna, 'di ba? Mahirap pa po sobrang hirap pa po ng sitwasyon natin ngayon. Hindi natin alam na yung mga kahalubilo natin is meron na palang sintomas na gano'n. Ayun po.
Masaya po talaga ako sa mga sinasabi ng presidente natin. Kung wala pang bakuna, simple hindi pa tayo nakakasigurado sa ating kaligtasan. Mas maganda talaga yung bakunahan muna bago maging maluwag.
Opo, dapat manatili pa rin po tayo sa mahigpit po na Kasi po, 'di ba, yung ngayon pa nga lang po na hindi po ganun kaluwag sa atin, 'di ba po? Parang labas na nga po ng labas yung mga bata. Paano pa po pag inopen pa po talaga? Lalo na pong lalaganap yung sakit sa atin. Yun po.
Still to come, government extends assistance to Auring-affected residents. And measures are in place to prevent the entry of African swine fever in ILOCOS and Antique. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Pangalagaan ng sarili laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Hanggat maaari, umiwas sa mataong lugar. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong at bibig, maging malinis sa katawan at ugaliin ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay. Takpan ang ilong at bibig kung uubo o babahing. Umiwas sa mga taong nagpapakita ng sintomas ng coronavirus disease gaya ng lagnat, ubo at sipon. Magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Tropical Depression Auring has affected almost 32,000 families in Region 5, 10, 11, and Caraga. In an update by the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council Tuesday morning, Caraga reported the most number of affected families at over 31,000. Auring also left one person dead and 2 others missing in Caraga. Also damaged were 240 houses in Caraga and Region 11, 60 of which were totally destroyed. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles assured continuous government assistance to residents affected by Auring.
We continue to monitor the situation on the ground at lahat ng ating mga agencies and departments that are in charge of providing relief, rescue, and response operations are doing it. We'd like to commend and salute all of our government officials and government employees and government workers who are currently in the thick of the rescue, relief, and response operations on the ground. We continue to monitor the situation and act quickly, especially in helping yung mga kababayans natin na talagang naapektuhan.
President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the country's digital readiness plan. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Noglares said this measure is being done to help the country bounce back from the ongoing pandemic.
Efforts are actually already underway to ensure improved access to the internet, and these include easing regulatory burdens through progressive regulations and policies such as the entry of a third telco and an issuance of a JMC on tower permits, and initiatives to spur growth and expansion through catalytic programs and projects. Following the CHIP framework and ongoing DICT efforts, the government expects an average of 5,000 towers per year to be built over the next 3 years.
The government has already distributed more than 6,000 hectares of land for rebel returnees. Secretary Carlo Nograles said more public lands will be identified for distribution to former rebels who will return to the fold of the law.
The DAR has recommended and the President has approved the following. Number 1, for the AFP and PNP to provide security measures in the government-owned land areas which are found to be critical in nature. Number 2, to create an interagency task force for the relocation of rebel returnees in other regions or provinces with available government-owned lands. Number 3, for government agencies to identify idle government-owned lands that are ideal for distribution for rebel returnees. And number 4, to implement the whole-of-nation approach for the enhancement of livelihood support projects to rebel returnees.
The government and private sector partners formally launched on Monday the Pilipinas Kontra GUTOM or PKG. This is a national and multi-sectoral anti-hunger movement where government and private sector partners shall work together to reduce hunger among Filipinos. The common goal of the Pilipinas Kontra GUTOM's partners is to bring 1 million Filipinos out of hunger by 2022. Cabinet Secretary and Task Force Zero Hunger Chair Carlo Nograles said the PKG is adopting a whole-of-nation approach with the goal of ending hunger by year 2030. Nograles thanked all the groups and organizations that have committed to work for a hunger-free Philippines. To raise awareness regarding hunger, PKG is set to launch a public information campaign through its website, PILIPINAS-CONTRA-GUTOM.com. The provinces of ILOCOS, NORTE, and Antique have intensified measures to prevent the entry of African swine fever or ASF. More on this from Late Kabagani.
Cargo trucks entering Ilocos Norte now have to undergo stricter inspection at the quarantine checkpoints to keep the province free from African swine fever. Provincial veterinarian Dr. Lloyd Valenzuela reported that around 400 kilos of undocumented pork have been confiscated from cargo truck operators passing through the Ilocos Norte border over the past 3 weeks. As a precautionary measure, Valenzuela has recommended to the governor to prohibit hog traders to roam around in the barangays to buy from small farm hog raisers. Earlier this month, the Provincial Veterinary Office required traders to attend seminars on biosecurity and animal welfare and the submission of necessary documents for the transport of hogs. In Antique, the ASF quarantine checkpoint of the Provincial Veterinary Office started operating in the municipalities of Libertad and Pandan on Monday. The checkpoints are initially established in the borders of Aklan and Antique and manned by police and agriculture personnel. Delivery van drivers unaware of the prohibition on the entry of pork and other pork-based products from Luzon or other ASF-affected areas were initially reprimanded. The provincial ordinance imposes a fine of 1,000 to 5,000 pesos or imprisonment of 6 months up to 1 year or both for those transporting pork products from ASF-affected areas into the province. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Lade Kabagani.
In our business news, the Department of Trade and Industry in Central Visayas is conducting seminars to help the beneficiaries of the Sugbo Negosyo program. DTI-7 said it has so far conducted 17 seminars this month through its negosyo centers to train beneficiaries, facilitate registrations, and assist in other development services. The capital has allocated 100 million pesos for the program, which had been released through the 17 provincial board members and the Office of Vice Governor Junjun Davide. On Monday, qualified entrepreneurs received a 10,000 peso capital under the Mga Serbisyo ug Ginagmay ng Patigayon category from the Office of Board Member Yolanda Daan. Sugbo Negosyo is a livelihood assistance program of the Cebu Provincial Government in partnership with the DTI-7 and the Mandaue Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Other categories of the program include Negosyo Padayon worth 50,000 pesos for each beneficiary and Produktong Sugbuanon worth 20,000 pesos. Up next, the Philippine National Police is seeking the assistance of the Philippine Army in tracking down the 9 former police officers implicated in Jolo shooting. And the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has approved the resumption of non-professional sports leagues. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang mga dapat gawin sa lugar ng trabaho laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ang mga kumpanya ay dapat magbigay ng face mask sa kanilang mga empleyado. Bukod dito, magbigay kaalaman din patungkol sa COVID-19. Siguraduhing malinis ang kapaligiran. Maglagay ng sabon at hand sanitizer sa mga palikuran. Siguraduhing ligtas at nalutong maigi ang mga pagkain sa kantina. Obserbahan ang kalusugan ng mga empleyado at katrabaho. Kung sakali man na mayroon silang sintomas ng coronavirus disease, gaya ng lagnat, ubot sipon at hirap sa paghinga, ay agad ipasuri sa doktor. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Philippine National Police has asked the Philippine Army for help in tracking down the 9 former police officers implicated in the fatal shooting of 4 intelligence troopers in June last year. PNP Chief Sina said the dismissed JOLO cops are wary of surrendering due to fears about their security and safety. This despite earlier assurances that they will be detained in PNP National Headquarters at Camp Crame, Quezon City. Aside from the Philippine Army, he said they also gave copies of the arrest warrants to the National Bureau of Investigation or NBI. Report said the 9 former policemen are still in Jolo Sulu. Last month, prosecutors of the Department of Justice found probable cause to indict the 9 cops for 4 counts of murder and planting of evidence. The panel did not recommend bail for the accused. An explosion caused by an improvised bomb rocked the national highway in Barangay Putiao, Pilar Town in Sorsogon on Monday. The bombing, allegedly done by New People's Army rebels, left Police Corporal Jeffrey Enconje Putian and 3 other civilians wounded. The Police Regional Office 5 said the victims were rushed to the Bicol Regional Training and Teaching and Hospital for treatment. The rebels intended to ambush the PNP truck loaded with 11 policemen from the 92nd Special Action Command bound for Camp Simeon Ola headquarters. The police personnel were able to retaliate and engage the rebels in a brief firefight, prompting the terrorists to flee. PRO 5 Regional Director Bartolome Bustamante meanwhile called on the public to help end the threat of insurgency in Bicol region. The new members of the Multi-Sector Advisory Board vowed to contribute to the development and advancement of the Philippine Army into a professional force as they took their posts with the Army's 55th Engineer Brigade. Claire Gighe has the story.
Members of the Multi-Sector Advisory Board or MSAB of the 55th Engineer Brigade of the Philippine Army, led by Colonel Ireneo Sebastian, the 55th Engineer Brigade Commanding Officer, formally took their oath and pinning of ATR or Army Transformation Roadmap stakeholder pin to the members on Friday, February 19. The Advisory Board was organized by the brigade to promote the continuity and sustainability of the ATR and encourage shared responsibility in its success. Further, Colonel Sebastian expressed appreciation to the MSAB members for accepting the call to be advisors of the Army Engineer in attaining their vision of being a professional Army Engineer in Mindanao, particularly in Lanao.
To the members of the 55th Multi-Sectoral Advisory Board, may you become an instrument of supporting and evaluating the transformation initiative of the brigade towards the realization of our vision.
He also said they have selected the members to help the brigade in its commitment for genuine reform on good governance, operational efficiency, and organization efficiency.
The MSAB member will play an important role in the attainment of our vision and accomplishment of our vision.
The said MSAB launching is one of the parameters to the compliance status of the Army governance pathway. For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency Iligan City Information Center.
In the United States, authorities on Monday arrested the wife of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, the leader of the Mexican Sinaloa cartel in Virginia. The U.S. Justice Department said Emma Coronel Aispuro was arrested at Dallas International Airport on charges related to her alleged involvement in international drug trafficking. The dual U.S.-Mexican citizen was scheduled to appear via video conference Tuesday in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Court documents showed Aispuro is charged with participating in a plot to distribute cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana for importation into the United States. She is also accused of assisting Guzman in his July 11, 2015 escape from Altiplano prison located in Almoloya in Juarez, Mexico. The drug kingpin was convicted in 2019. In sports, more sports leagues are playing soon amid the pandemic. This as the Interagency Task Force approves the resumption of the Philippine Superliga or PSL and the Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League or MPBL. Both leagues are set to push through with their planned bubbles in Subic Bay. Games and Amusement Board Chair Abraham Mitra thanked the IATF for allowing the resumption of non-professional sports competitions in areas under modified general community quarantine. Mitra hopes that other athletes who consider sports as their main source of income would be allowed to play as well, even if they are not in the professional sports league right now. With the IATF EID approval, the PSL can now push through with its Beach Volleyball Challenge Cup this weekend. 8 teams, including 2 each from Santa Lucia and Avance Negrense, will clash in the said event. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. The country will not be placed under MGCQ until the vaccination program has begun. The World Health Organization said the pandemic will end by early 2022. Government extends assistance to Auring-affected residents. And President Duterte approves a whole-of-nation approach to help rebel returnees. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day.